There are things that can be explained. Unfortunately, there are no words to describe what is held in our stories. These stories are mixed with true events, as well as fabrications of our slightly enhanced mental state. I suggest you not follow along if you get squeamish. Legrimmbros presents Bobby. So the story begins in my early childhood, at the age of 10. I met my best friend Bobby in the 5th grade. I was playing at the park near my house when this man pulls into the parking lot. He's driving this dingy little rust bucket van with dark tinted windows. When he got out, he looked just about as bad as the van. I looked around to see who he was here to pick up and noticed I'm the only one here. As he walks up to me, he begins to look around like a crackhead about to make a deal. Then I hear someone behind me. "Hey man, you can't just wait there, he's gonna take you." I looked back and that was the first time I met Bobby. He was a little boy with a blonde bowl cut wearing a white t-shirt and overalls. He says, "Run!" and instantly I began running in that direction with him. Luckily, the creep decided he didn't want to put much effort in and gave up once we began to run. We run all the way to my house and then Bobby says, "I'll see you later." And he just runs down the street. All I could think is, what a strange kid. Fast forward to my freshman year of high school, and Bobby and I are best friends. He's a lonely guy, and I'm the only one he ever really talks to. I ended up dating this beautiful girl named Rebecca. She was one of those girls who always dressed modestly and was really focused on school. She wanted to become a lawyer because she thought she could help rid the world of all the evil. I really wish she was still around. You see, after we'd been dating for a couple of months, we decide it's time to go on a date unchaperoned. Yeah, I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but to us, that was like taking our relationship to the next level. Anyways, our date was amazing, and at the end of the night, we were walking through a park where we were going to meet our parents. It was just as the sun went down, and during the winter, we could get a small amount of snow. It was beautiful seeing my amazing girlfriend with all the white powdered trees. The best way I can explain it is during Christmas, that feeling you get of pure joy and happiness. She sees a lake just down a walkway and exclaims how she wants to get a closer look at it. We walk down to the frozen lake, and as she's going to touch it, it's as if something bumped her and she fell in. She cracked through the ice and was now trapped under. As I start to take my jacket off, all I can think is I have to save her. Just as I'm about to jump in, Bobby comes running down and stops me. He tells me, "If you jump in, you'll die too. Just call the cops." I call, and when they finally arrive, they pull her out and determine she'd already died of hypothermia and drowning. It was the single most terrifying moment in my life. Or so I thought. After the incident, I hung out with Bobby so much that I never really had any other friends after that. We would play Xbox taking turns and just sit and talk. Sometimes we'd go walk through the wooded area by my house. I had an old Red Ryder BB gun that we would take out to shoot down cans and such, but one day I noticed Bobby shooting at little animals and trying to kill them. I asked him why he was doing that with a sound of disgust in my voice. He replied, "Don't be such a baby, they're just animals." I brush it off and we return home. Later into my senior year of high school, Bobby comes over and we decide to go on an exploration again. The whole time he's very quiet and seems really distant. Just when I was going to ask him what's wrong, he says, "I think it's time to head back to your place." As we get to my street, I notice a bright orange and yellow glow. But then I see smoke, and it's coming from my house. As we run to my house, we notice it's engulfed in an uncontrollable flame. Fire trucks and police cars surround my house, and a police officer approaches me and identifies me. He tells me my parents are at the hospital, and says I need to be taken there right away. I jump in the car and shout to Bobby, "I'll catch you later." As we drove away, I looked back at him, and he had this eerie expression like he had no emotion. Just a blank stare. On the way to the hospital, I asked the officer what happened, and he explains that they think it's an act of arson because the gas line going to the stove had been cut. Once we get to the hospital, I see my parents. They look as if their skin had melted. A nurse tells me that my mother passed away almost before she was even at the hospital, and my father had received brain trauma from the heat and is not going to be able to take care of me anymore. Needing a place to live, I move in with my senile old grandmother, whom I've never really talked to. It's not too far, just across town, so Bobby still comes over. But after graduating high school, I landed an internship at a law office trying to keep Rebecca's dream alive. The work was pretty bland: filing, data input, grabbing coffee for the office workers. So it was pretty nice when Bobby would make the trip to have lunch with me after work. The only thing that was starting to get out of hand was when I would tell Bobby about the tedious parts of my job. He would reply with, "Just kill 'em all." I'd be so thrown back, as he describes that he would take an Uzi in one day and just mow them down. One day he even said, "Leave the women widowed and the children bastards." I was so alarmed that I decided I had to get somebody to help him. I find this man named Dr. Klein. He's an older man, probably in his 50s. I schedule a meeting and tell him all about Bobby. He tells me to bring him in immediately so he cannot harm himself or anyone else. I tell Bobby I have a surprise for him so he's not alarmed by the fact that we're going to see a psychiatrist. He got angry when we arrived and he saw the nameplate on the door. I calm him down and he reluctantly agrees to go in, saying, "You're gonna regret this." We walk into Dr. Klein's office and he says, "Welcome, have a seat." "Is this Bobby?" He tells us how he heard us talking at the door. I tell Dr. Klein that he didn't want to come in, but I got him to see the importance. Bobby just sat on the other side of the room with his arms folded and that same eerie blank stare. Dr. Klein pulls out a bottle and a syringe after shuffling through his desk. After filling the syringe, he begins to circle the room. He says, "You see, people need to be protected, from themselves more than anyone else." He's starting to get behind Bobby. But then he continues on and makes his way towards me and says, "We all have our own demons, and sometimes we just need help silencing them." Bobby jumps out of his chair towards me as Dr. Klein sticks me. It makes me feel very woozy and lightheaded, but as I look at Bobby, he begins to fade. I think it's just my vision, but I notice I can still make out some of the titles on the books behind him. Dr. Klein waits to see my reaction, as if to see if his choice was the right one. As I come down from my panic and confusion, he says he's never seen a case so bad. He tells me it's an advanced form of hallucination and is a severe mental disability. I'm extremely flabbergasted. I don't know what to think. Could Bobby really have been in my head all along? He was there when my girlfriend drowned. He was there when my house caught on fire. He saved me from being kidnapped. I felt as if I had just been hit by a freight train, realizing he had been there for my darkest moments in life. The doctor explains he had done his research on me, and after seeing all the cases, he knew that Bobby was there to cover up my darkest intent and emotions. I realize if I don't get my shit together, Dr. Klein will have me institutionalized. So I take a deep breath and tell him thank you. I ask if I could schedule a follow-up appointment as soon as tomorrow. He says yes and gives me medicine, saying that if I see Bobby again, I must take it right away. On my way home, I can't stop thinking how I killed my parents. I drowned my girlfriend, and I've been the one responsible for all of Bobby's evils. The depression and anxiety hits hard. I'm such an animal. How can I continue to live with myself? As I pull into my driveway, I just sit there for a moment. I can't handle this. I instantly just run inside. I grab my 12-gauge shotgun and I grab a slug. I load it. I cock it. I place the barrel in my mouth. Just as I'm about to pull the trigger, I stop. Maybe I can recover from this. Maybe I can lead a normal life. My tears are just rolling down my cheek as snot pours out of my nose. I'm a real mess, and I'm just sitting there with a shotgun in my mouth. But before I could take it out, I glance over and Bobby appears on my side. I think maybe I can help him and he's here to save me. He places his hand on top of mine, which lays on the trigger. He leans in to whisper in my ear and says, "Do it." Wahahaha! No, I'm just kidding. But whoa, that was deep. If you guys liked the video, click like and subscribe, and give us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you have any suggestions on any topics of stories you want us to do, just let us know, and we'd be happy to write something up. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to our story. And remember, death always makes sure that everyone's equal.